Hey Cropper, I'm going to respond real quickly to this missing 4 minutes about religion. Um, what I was trying to get at in my video um, is that we're all of us are religious who um, believe that we know something. Knowledge, I think, requires faith because we sort of have to believe that the human mind is capable of apprehending the truth before we can have any knowledge. And there's really no way of proving that the knowledge we have of the world is genuine. Um, we can question ourselves and be skeptics, and we wouldn't be able to even act on any of the things that we think are true. And my claim is that religion, and really the reason I would even use this word is just because etymologically it means to bind together. And so I would claim that religion allows us to bind what we think is true, the knowledge that we have, with our actions in the world. And so through an act of faith, really, uh, we take our knowledge and we put it to work in the world to make the world a better place. Um, Certainly, this word has come into quite a bit of disrepute in the modern age because it implies that you believe in supernatural beings. Um, and, certainly there are forms of religious practice that have nothing to do with a theistic conception of God, um, such as Buddhism and Taoism. And these forms of religious practice recognize the underlying mystery implicit in the fact that anything exists at all. And, um, they don't denigrate our ability to know and be rational and think, but they say you can never arrive at the ultimate through thought. Um, you know, the opening lines to the Tao Te Ching say that, I'm paraphrasing, that which is eternal cannot be spoken, and the Tao which is spoken is not the eternal Tao. So there's the sense that there is uh, somehow this mystery underlying everything that is that we can never fully comprehend. And I think, you know, as much as we know about science, or as much as we know through science about nature, you ask any astrophysicist or cosmologist uh, what happened before the Big Bang, and they'll throw up their arms and say, "I don't know." And some would argue, based on some sort of God of the gaps argument, that this is the place where, even in the modern age, with all our scientific knowledge, there's still room for God. We could go there. Um, but Cropper, you were saying that religion leads us to project a certain human image onto the universe, and I would say that sure, this has happened. This continues to happen. Particularly with some forms of literalistic theism. But I wonder, if perhaps your objectified picture of the universe, that it's a meaningless, valueless mechanism, except for that little bit of it which happens to be human. I wonder if that could also be seen as a projection. Um, because, from my point of view, the human being is a product of the universe. Everything that we attribute to the human, our creativity, our consciousness, our values, our morality, our science, our ability to know, all of this is a product of this natural process of 13.7 billion years of cosmic unfolding. And so all of it is implicit in this same process. And to say the universe isn't purposeful, um, the universe doesn't have a meaning, well, then where did we get these things from? They didn't just magically appear when humans popped onto the scene, or at least, you know, that's how I orient myself to the universe. It's almost it's the womb which gave birth to us, and then to look back at it and say, oh, that's just nothing. It's a bunch of dead matter with no value. I think that's a little anthropocentric, actually, and that really the projection is to see the whole thing as a machine. It takes a lot of effort to abstract ourselves out of the living presence of this cosmos in order to get to that mechanistic picture. But that's just my perspective. Um, you mentioned gravity, and I think gravity is interesting because actually, if you ask a scientist what is gravity, well, Newton used to think it was a force. Since Einstein, scientists or physicists may answer, well, it's the curvature of space-time. But the bottom line is we don't know what gravity is. We can see and measure and understand its effects and predict its effects. But what is gravity? We can't really ask scientifically why an object falls to the earth. It just does. We observe it, and we devise mathematical equations to measure it and also to predict it. But we don't know what gravity is or why it happens. It's just as much a mystery as what was before the Big Bang. So there's still, I think, space for a spiritual or religious perspective on reality because of this underlying mysteriousness of existence. Certainly we can measure all the various forces of nature, but when we start to really ponder and question and ask why these forces should be this way, why the four major energies, the strong and weak nuclear forces, gravity, and electromagnetism, should have been so finely tuned to lead to intelligent life 13.7 billion years later, why that should be the case, who knows? It's a mystery. And when, we marvel at this process and consider all the knowledge we have of it, it's quite beautiful. And I think, at least it evokes in me a sense of religious awe. And I don't attribute the creation of this whole thing to some, anthropomorphic figure who lives in the clouds. But I recognize that there's something going on here, and I would almost want to call it sacred, or at least we should respect the cosmos, which has unfolded and brought us into being, and take a sort of religious attitude to it. Not necessarily to bow down and worship to it, but to celebrate it. And someone like Carl Sagan, were they religious? Well, not in the traditional sense, but certainly they were spiritual. They were awed, or Sagan was awed, by the majesty of the creative process of this universe. And I use the word religious in a way that it's not often used or understood, but hopefully I've explained a little bit better what I was getting at in my video. So yeah, sorry this went on for 9 minutes, but hopefully you got my point. And thanks for uploading those last 4 minutes. Take it easy.